Hello, and thank you for the invitation to address the World Taiwanese Congress conference this year. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I'm grateful for the invitation to share a few thoughts with you about the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, and in particular, the growing challenges we face in the Indo-Pacific and how Taiwan has a critical role to play in upholding the free and open order in the Indo-Pacific. I think where I would start is just a few comments on the importance of Taiwan and U.S.-Taiwan relations. Many people on the other side of the strait often accuse the United States of having an interest in Taiwan only because of the competition with China, and that it's an annoyance to China that we invest so heavily in Taiwan and with our Taiwanese friends. Fact of the matter is, Taiwan is an important partner to us. We all know the story of semiconductors and the important role that Taiwan plays in global supply chains. But of course, it goes way beyond that for the United States. Taiwan is a top 10 trade partner overall, oftentimes coming in as high as number 8, and certainly number 8 matters, particularly when you consider some of the other large trading partners of the United States. Taiwan consistently ranks year in, year out ahead of India, ahead of Saudi Arabia. So that trade volume makes Taiwan very important to the United States, in addition to the semiconductor story. Taiwan is also the 6th largest destination for U.S. agricultural products. That's a major market for the United States and our farmers. So it's an important trade and economic relationship. It's also a relationship based on shared values and shared interests. We'll talk about the Indo-Pacific a little more in a moment. But it really has become a global partnership when you consider Taiwan's contributions to Ukrainian refugees in Poland, when you think about Taiwan's contribution in fighting and combating Ebola in Western Africa, when you think about Taiwan's remaining diplomatic partners in the Western Hemisphere and the contributions in countries like Belize. This is a global partnership, one based on shared values, and the United States benefits directly from Taiwan's investment in those important areas. Taiwan is an important security partner. We know that Taiwan is the United States' second largest purchaser of U.S. military equipment and has been in that top tier category for many decades. But it's not just that Taiwan is a customer to us. Taiwan implementing these various military security assistance programs puts a credible force forward into the areas of contestation that are of great interest to us. So for Taiwan, being a well-equipped, well-trained force contributes very directly to U.S. security. So Taiwan is important to the United States for a lot of reasons, but let me conclude with Taiwan and its geography, because that then helps us address the broader Indo-Pacific. Taiwan is important because if you look at a map of the Indo-Pacific and you were to close your eyes and try to find the center point, you'd probably land on Taiwan or pretty close to it. Taiwan, as an island of 23 or 24 million people, occupies that key strategic territory, which makes it important not only to the United States as a Pacific power, but makes it important to Japan, Philippines, and all the countries that look to partnerships to uphold a free and open order in the Indo-Pacific. So that geography is very key. And when we talk about shared threats and shared alliances, we're really talking about a collection of countries and interested parties that seek to uphold the free and open order. This is important to the United States. We are a Pacific power, but we're not fully resident in the Western Pacific. We are a country with great U.S. territories and states in the Indo-Pacific, but most of that lies to the east of the international date line. So we're very reliant on partners and allies for burden sharing and to do their part in assisting us in that great endeavor of upholding the free and open order in the Indo-Pacific. We're reliant on our partners and friends for their own capabilities that they bring to bear for their own defense, but also for contributions to broader security interests in the Indo-Pacific. We're reliant on partners and allies for basing and access. And although we don't have U.S. forces based in Taiwan since the break of relations in 1979, we now have trainers on Taiwan, and we have the potential for developing contingency plans that might involve U.S. forces coming to Taiwan in the most dire of circumstances. And that access would likely be very critical in determining the outcome of a conflict. So we count on partners and allies for that, great partners like Japan and Australia and the Philippines and South Korea for basing and access. But we also count on our partners and allies to do things day to day to uphold deterrence. In some instances, that's doing the freedom of navigation operations. In some instances, it's helping in humanitarian and disaster relief operations. But I think in Taiwan's case, most often it's meeting China's challenges in the gray zone. We're seeing a very high level of activity from PLA, military, Chinese Coast Guard, Chinese maritime militia, and in many ways we're seeing unprecedented levels of activity when you consider that it's a daily concern now. Particularly since the fall 2022 visit of then Speaker of our House, Nancy Pelosi, the Chinese have really ramped up this military pressure, intimidation, and coercion. And Taiwan is really on the front lines of, yes, protecting its own sovereignty, its own country, but also on the front lines of that pushback and that show of interest in upholding the free and open order that we all benefit from. So deterrence for all of us in the Indo-Pacific really comes down to what Taiwan can do on a day-to-day basis, pushing back on these military activities designed to coerce and intimidate Taiwan. So this is an important relationship for all those reasons. And I think it's appropriate that we think about this first island chain and really into the second island chain, how important Taiwan is for all of us. Certainly we've mentioned the geography and the importance for countries like Japan and the Philippines, but really for an American to say that is one thing. When we think about what our Japanese and our Filipino allies are saying and doing themselves, that speaks quite loudly as well. Shinzo Abe, the late great Shinzo Abe, when he was prime minister, I think was the first to say Taiwan's security is really Japan's security. And that's about as direct a statement as one could make in terms of how vital Taiwan's continued existence and security is to another country. President Marcos in the Philippines has taken unprecedented steps in making bases available for U.S. access through the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, ECTA. We now have 9 sites where the U.S. military can have access, forward deploy various materials. And if you look at where those sites are, it's very key locations in proximity to the Taiwan Strait, particularly those sites in northern Luzon. So when you really look at that first island chain, Japan making investments in its southwest islands and giving the U.S. military greater exercise opportunities and access there, and the Philippines in northern Luzon, this is so key to upholding security in the first island chain. But I think for Taiwan, it goes out to the second island chain. Certainly the loss of Taiwan would give the PLA a direct corridor through the first island chain into the second island chain. But really it's Taiwan's day-to-day activities and investing in its partners in the Pacific Islands that gives us that extra layer of security in the second island chain. Taiwan's important relationships with countries like the Marshall Islands, Palau, Tuvalu, those diplomatic partnerships with Taiwan are also vehicles for Taiwanese investment and involvement that make those countries more safe and secure. But again, we all benefit from that. So it's important to us today. I think it will only grow in importance in the future as we look at China's continuing activities and their ambitions. They seek to upend the free and open order. They aspire to a region where countries are more deferential to Chinese preferences and interests. They seek a region of diminished U.S. alliances and partnerships and presence. And so this will continue to be important as we go further into the future, with Chinese aspirations, ambitions remaining very robust. And we see that in their statements, we see it in their activities, in their day-to-day military operations. So this will continue to be important as we go into the future, facing these challenges from China. So let's talk about a few things that the United States and Taiwan can do together so that we can keep that place of priority of securing the free and open order in the Indo-Pacific and the first island chain and through the second island chain. And let's really consider the agenda that will enable us to do that. I think there are questions about the Trump administration. We certainly hear that from friends about certain anxieties of, will the commitments remain? Will partners and allies be valued at the same level as they historically have? And I think what we've seen so far should be encouraging to us. We have things like Secretary Rubio on his first day in office on January 21st, hosting a meeting of the Quad. And that Quad meeting with the United States, Australia, Japan, and India endorsed an agenda that included more activities in the security domain, more military activities, which are designed, I think, to push back against China's ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. We've seen Secretary Hegseth make a very successful visit to the Indo-Pacific, where he endorsed the alliances with the Philippines and Japan and made an important stop at Indo-Pacific Command and Guam. These are all very key partnerships, allies, and U.S. territories and states in the ongoing competition with China, and I think his visit really underscored our interest in continuing to invest in those places in very important ways. I think President Trump has hosted his counterparts like Prime Minister Shiba and Prime Minister Modi, and we've come out of those visits with very strong joint statements, particularly when it comes to the security issues and underlying the importance of those relationships. So we're seeing, I think, at the early stages of this administration, some promising signs. There are some things that I personally am concerned about, and I think over time we'll need to see how things really kind of shake out. I'm personally disappointed to see the suspension of a lot of development assistance aid. I'm personally concerned that we've seen a cutting back of some of our longstanding State Department programs like the Fulbright program, U.S. visitors programs. I do think after some review, it'll be reconstituted in some form, and I hope that's done with some urgency, because I think those so-called soft power elements of our approach to the Indo-Pacific region are also vitally important as we look at what China's ambitions are. So those are concerns, but again, I think some early signs can lead us to be cautiously optimistic on the role of the United States in the Trump administration making these investments. I think Taiwan has some responsibilities as well. Certainly Taiwan is responsible for its own defense, and we've seen President Lai say some encouraging things about increasing defense spending. He has said that Taiwan's goal is to get to 3% of GDP, and he's described that as a floor, not a ceiling. That's quite encouraging and would put Taiwan above the so-called NATO standard of defense spending, and I think that's appropriate given the threat that Taiwan faces. We've also seen investment in national resiliency, so beyond defense spending, investing in continuity of government, in resilient communications, in resilient energy supplies. If Taiwan does face that worst case scenario, I would submit that now Taiwan is investing in the right kinds of things to ensure that it could sustain itself, could continue to survive, and yes, continue to be resilient, and that's a very important thing. I think number two, Taiwan needs to address our trade deficit and consider investments in the United States, and of course it is doing so. We've seen large commitments on the part of companies like TSMC and others as well, looking at investment in natural gas in Alaska. This will be, I think, important for Taiwan and what Taiwan gets out of those investments, but really help solidify the relationship at a time when the administration is scrutinizing every trading partner in terms of whether we carry a deficit, in terms of any potential unfair trade practices. And yes, Taiwan was initially identified for very substantial tariffs by the Trump administration. Those are now on pause, and I think there's an interest in working with Taiwan to make sure that Taiwan is dedicated to a free, fair, and reciprocal trade relationship that is mutually beneficial. So I think that's very important. I think number three, Taiwan needs to continue this good regional citizenship and global citizenship as different challenges emerge. I noted the very kind and generous support for Ukrainian refugees, Ebola assistance in Western Africa, but there are new challenges emerging related to protection of critical infrastructure like undersea cables, growing needs of partner countries for resilience when it comes to climate change, a whole variety of things that Taiwan will have an important role to play in addressing. And I think that reputation of good regional global citizenship is one that will hold up well should Taiwan sustain those commitments and serve it well as countries evaluate their own relationships with Taiwan and whether or not to continue to invest as heavily. I think Taiwan is up to that task, and the United States will see that as very welcome types of activities and assistance. So Taiwan continuing to spend on its own defense, continuing to invest in resilience, continuing to be a good regional global citizen. These are precisely the kinds of things that will help Taiwan help itself. And I know, again, Taiwan is certainly up to that task. There are a lot of questions about China, its economy, the demographics and the trajectory that puts China on. So I believe that we can continue to deter, and we can continue to buy those extra days, those extra weeks, those extra months. We have many U.S. Military officers who see this as a defendable island. 80 nautical miles of water, mountainous, inhospitable terrain, unfavorable sea conditions for most of the year, very few ports for embarkation that are suitable for troops. This is not an easy target at all, and we have military commanders who are very confident in the plans that are developing, and they're dynamic plans. They're looking at the introduction of new technology, unmanned and autonomous and semi-autonomous platforms, for example. And so I think we have the chance to ensure that deterrence holds. And we're looking at new tools. We're looking at economic cost imposition. What can we do not only in terms of export controls, not only in terms of investment reviews, but should China continue to crank up the pressure and maybe even move in the direction of more dangerous kinetic operations, what are the actual consequences China could face in the economic realm, and what partners would be willing to step up and be a part of that. So we're looking at all these things in the hopes that deterrence holds, and in the hopes that over time China's own challenges will force it to make a different kind of decision with respect to its relationship with Taiwan, and that the future of Taiwan really will belong to the people of Taiwan where it is most appropriately placed. So I want to thank you again for the invitation to share some thoughts with you, and I'm sorry I can't be with you, but I wish you great success in this year's World Taiwanese Congress Conference. Thanks again.